Peace, and blessings. Let me check my sound. I can't talk. Peace and blessings, y'all. Let me make sure my sound is good. So I've been trying to. I had a little issue running in, so let me see if everything is okay. I had a little issue running in. Okay, good. Sound is good. I appreciate you all coming through. I really do. We or someone should start a group prayer channel or something. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. What's going on, y'all? Peace and blessings. I appreciate you all checking out my health stream channel. You know, those of us in Christ specifically, we really think about our health. And because we in Christ, we have a renewed mind, we have the Holy Spirit to see the deception and the lies of this world. And we start to think outside of the paradigms and the theories and the narratives. And we start to have a mind that's actually renewed to think about our health the way God designed us to think about it. So that's kind of my inspiration between the health channel and my email. My email is God's design for health, because honestly, the way our body is designed to function is according to how God designed us to function, not the big pharmacia industry, not Louis Pasteur, not John D. Rockefeller, Fauci, or any of these satanic puppets. So let's first give all glory and honor to God that He, through Jesus Christ, provided us salvation through who He is and what He's done through His death and resurrection, that God took on flesh, fulfilled all righteousness to glorify the Father, and in the person of the Son, took on that same flesh and took our punishment through His death, that we could die to our flesh, and through the likeness of His resurrection, be reborn by the Holy Spirit to love God. So God has reconciled us to Himself. He solved our issue of being a slave to sin, that He, by His Spirit, made us slaves to Christ, slaves to righteousness, that we have a new heart that loves God, that desires to please Him and live for His will. So I just want to frame how we're viewing health. This is different from many people who just go from one narrative of the world to another. But in Christ, we must be born again with a new heart and a renewed mind to think about how God wants us to live. And that includes how we treat our bodies, that we can be good, responsible stewards of our bodies, treating them right. First, dealing with the spiritual problem of sin, because if you don't deal with that issue, you're not going to have the mind or the heart to even know the truth from a lie. And this is what this is about. You know, when you talk about the environmental toxicity, see, the world is promoting what it's doing through a deception. All the toxins, all the bad food is being promoted by the world. Imagine the same people who are sabotaging your awareness and your wellness, you know, trying to offer you a false solution. That's essentially what the big pharmacia industry is all about. They want to cloak how they're poisoning our environment, our food, just like they want to cloak to how they use media and politics to poison the hearts and minds of unregenerate, lost people who are spiritually blind. They're poisoning them with all kinds of propaganda, immorality, degeneracy, etc. And people are blind to it. They still go to the same institutions that lie to them and then ask them for help. So we don't do that here. We don't do that here. We're not going to the people who break your leg asking for a crutch. But here we're exposing the root cause of things from God's perspective, from an ontological view that begins with the God of the Bible. So let me give my shout outs to everybody here. I appreciate y'all coming through. And again, thank you all for those who hit the like button. What's going on? Born Again Shell, Thalia M, Tita, Axiom, Kenny, or I think is it Kenny or Kenny? Sometimes, you know, simple words, you can pronounce them wrong, so forgive me. Gigi, Johnny O, what's going on? If I say your name wrong and you get tired of it, just give me the Hooked on Phonics version, the phonetics pronunciation. JP, what's going on? Del Griffith, Faith Parent, Keisha, Gary Galushka, Curious Georgia, Leia, YB. Let me see here. Marcy T, what's going on? Gold Brooks, thank you for the birthday wishes. And welcome. Olive Juice, Katie Ray, what's going on? Kim Lugo, what's going on? Appreciate all of you all here. All right. So I'm going to talk about this because I'm going to share my screen and talk to you all about a few things. Let me share my screen. And I did a little pre-stream today where I wanted to talk about some of this stuff. So give me 1 second while I share my screen. All right. All right. So most people don't even realize that behind the scenes, there's always been some talk about some deadly fungus. And I think fungus doesn't get the right notoriety. That's about, most people think about mushrooms or mold or mildew, and those things in your bathrooms and around your sink, that is mold and fungus. But we got to get more fundamental than that. So like I was talking about earlier, I'm gonna make this really simple. I'm gonna break this down in the most simplest way. What's going on, Dennis Bachman? I appreciate the birthday wishes, y'all. Thank you. A sower of seed, what's going on? And like I said, this is my view of what's going on. And I've did my research and I've, just look at how God has designed things to be. And I just kind of put ideas together. So we know that because of sin, that death entered the world. So everything is breaking down, right? We are not immortal in this fleshly nature. Our flesh is breaking down. All things in nature are breaking down. The secular worldview will call this entropy. The secular world always has a counterfeit for the spiritual things, right? So the secular counterfeit for the fact that sin is in the world and everything is dying because of sin is entropy. The fact that everything is breaking down. So if you think about how, like when if you see a dead tree in the forest, right? Everybody's seen a dead tree or a dead animal. And as something dies, the environment around those cells that are breaking down and dead changes. We call it the microbiome, or that the organisms start to take on a different nature around decaying and dead flesh or dead material, dead cells. And it takes on a nature of trying to break them down. I think they call this like macrophages or something like that, like some kind of, because, the world in the germ theory narrative, they want to say, well, you have good bacteria, you have bad bacteria. So everybody knows about probiotics, prebiotics, and all that stuff. Well, when they say good bacteria, they're just talking about that cells in a healthy environment that have the nutritional, spiritual, and everything else support they need, they function like they're supposed to function. But around toxins or some kind of insult, those same toxic and dead cells start to accumulate, and the environment changes to break down the dead and toxic material. And what happens is we live in a saturated environment of this pollution and poison, right? Everything, not just what we eat, not just the air, the water, not just the radiation, not just the food, but the products that we use, the soaps. People use lotions, and I would tell you, man, get some oils, some natural, or you can make your own, get some oils. But everything that is offered and around us is synthetic, toxic. Even the vitamins have been counterfeited. In the mainstream, they don't want you to get food grade vitamins. That's get your vitamins and minerals from food. They want you to get petroleum based, synthetic vitamins and minerals. And what happens is your body cannot utilize, assimilate, and absorb synthetic things. So what happens? They accumulate in your tissues. They cause cellular dysfunction and all kinds of issue, and eventually cell death. And they wear out your organs because everything in your body has to be filtered. You just can't put stuff in your body and it doesn't affect your blood, your organs, and all that. So putting all this synthetic stuff, it puts a burden on your liver. And if your liver is not functioning, your gallbladder is not going to be functioning. Your kidneys are going to be stressed out. And then once you stretch out those vital organs that help to eliminate the toxic burden, then it affects your blood, your heart, your lungs, your respiration, your thinking, your brain, everything, your whole gut micro. You know, they have something called the vagus nerve in your gut, and it's called the gut-brain connection. I mean, your microbiome affects literally everything in your body. And in a healthy body, there is going to be a natural fungus because you have dead cells. And it breaks down. Like, for example, most people don't realize that dandruff is a fungus issue because your scalp is constantly regenerating and breaking down. And in a healthy circumstance, your scalp doesn't break down excessively where the dead material begins to overly accumulate. And it begins inwardly because sometimes the dysfunction that causes cell death is an issue of diet, of high blood sugar, some kind of oxidation or vitamin deficiency or something. It could be radiation. It could be many things that cause skin reactions that the pharmaceutical industry will not tell you about. What's going on, Shawana? Aaron Gerald, 27. What's going on, Stillwater? Peace and blessings. I need to read all you zombies. What's going on? I just found out my healthy Celtic sea salt is high in lead. Yeah. You gotta really, some people test their own salts, but remember, in a natural, clean environment, Celtic salt is good. But remember that the manufacturers, not every manufacturer, every business is going to be authentic. So when you're talking about the purity of a product, that's a manufacturing issue. Now, now don't just criminalize all sea salts or Celtic sea salts. Sometimes you have to look at the businesses. Sometimes it's the issue of the integrity of the business or something like that. And yes, businesses, as they get wealthy, they start to cut corners. Some businesses are sold or bought out by corrupt people. See, what's happening is a lot of healthy companies are either going bankrupt or being bought out by companies that have, companies like Procter and Gamble and Coca-Cola and Nestle. What they do is they have like shell companies, right? They have shell companies that they rebrand, but they're all under a conglomerate of these larger corporations. So you may not know, I mean, everybody knows Pepsi, but everybody doesn't know that Pepsi owns quote unquote brands that are labeled as healthy. And then they're not going to put their logo on there, but they have these little subsidiary or shell companies, right, that are rebranded under the Nestle, Procter and Gamble, or Pepsi, and they buy out. They look at companies that are going bankrupt. They either buy them out or they do something where they absorb that smaller company under their larger umbrella, and then they change the quality. Like, for example, let's take something like Krispy Kreme. Not healthy at all, right? But I remember, and people who are older than me, when I was coming up, Krispy Kreme donuts had more real products. You can taste it. The quality was different. It was just a different kind of donut. It was still high in sugar, but they used real eggs and the flour. I mean, if you go back a few decades, the flour and all the ingredients have been heavily genetically modified. So even though Krispy Kreme donuts is a very unhealthy food, it was produced with more quality products decades ago. Now, these companies have usually been taken over by children or sold, and the people just use whatever products. They keep the label, they keep the packaging, but the quality is garbage. I'm just using donuts for an example. Look, we all got our sweet tooths. We all got our sweet tooth, y'all. I can't turn down a good chocolate chip cookie as much as I try. Oh, thank you, Shawan. I appreciate the well wishes on my birthday. Peace. Thank you so much, and everyone else for your wishes. I appreciate the kind words and encouragement and support. I really appreciate it. What's going on? A press button. Let me see. You said I've been struggling with mold, fungus, and parasite gut infections for a few years now. They really can stuff your microbiome. Yes, and let me be real. What we don't realize is that in the present, that our environment and the foods that we eat, parasites and fungus is a natural reaction when something is creating consistent and persistent cell death in the body, because parasites are going to form if something is killing your cells. Parasites are they're the microorganisms changing their shape and nature to adapt to the quality of your cells. So, for example, if you were a healthy person who ate real food, lived in an area of clean environment, you wouldn't have a need for parasites to develop. But if you went to a very unsanitary environment, your food was trash, you were getting radiated to death, your cells are going to die and become toxic in a higher level. And so your body's response is that microorganisms adapt and change nature to start breaking down all of that dead cell and toxic cell material. The problem is when you don't help to alleviate the burden of toxin, or you don't remove yourself from the toxic environment or stop the persistent bad lifestyle and behavior, the parasites begin to grow and proliferate because the problem is not being addressed. In this world, they want to deal with symptoms. Like, for example, everybody has had that experience. If you don't take out the trash, maggots will develop. I don't care how clean your house is. If you let trash sit in a warm, moist environment, maggots will just come out of nowhere. The bot fly will drop his eggs and maggots will form. And that's just how it is. So when you keep a system of persistent death in your body, and you're not stopping or helping to mitigate what's causing the issue, you will start to develop parasites. Your cells will take on a more catabolic nature in order to break down that fungus or those dead cells that keep accumulating. You don't want the cell death rate to overtake your cell regeneration. See, in a healthy microbiome, your body's cell regeneration outpaces how many cells are dying. But when the cells that are dying in your body outpaces the faster cell replacement cycle, then you get the proliferation of fungus as your body or your microbiome adapts to break down all this increasing dead cells. Your the environment is going to adapt to break down this environment of death. And then as your body starts to protect the rest of your body from this breakdown, it creates biofilms. It creates candida albicans and all this other stuff. Y'all bear with me. I'm talking off the top of my head, so I got a lot of things I want to talk about. What's going on? Child of the King Jesus, my Lord. Laura, what's going on? Olive Juice. Let me make sure. Jesus Clan with Dan, what's going on? I mean, everybody knows that you have walnut, black walnut. You have what's some other stuff you can take for parasite cleanse? Wormwood. Although you can't do these things at high doses and persistent, you got to do them. See, first you have to stop the issue that's creating the persistent cell death. If you don't do something to mitigate the environment, you taking something is only going to be a very temporary patchwork job. This is why we have to be aware of the increasingly electrified and irradiated environment that we live in. For example, we live in constant Wi-Fi bombardment, cell phone, cell towers, power lines, all this EMF, radio frequency, magnetism is affecting our cellular growth. For those who are 60 and older, you didn't have problems. You didn't have persistent Wi-Fi in your house. Even when I grew up, internet, I was a teenager when internet came about. You didn't have this stuff persistent like you do now. Now you go to work, it's Wi-Fi. You in the house, it's Wi-Fi. You in the store, it's Wi-Fi. You walking around, you driving, you got Wi-Fi in the car. You got Wi-Fi in the cell towers. You got radio frequency hitting you there. You got single cells in the library, the supermarket, your school where the children go to. Everything, the street lamps are now 5th generation plus, 6th generation, whatever. They got all the way to 10th generation technology. So you have a lot of issues, constant cellular oxidation. This is why they always tell you get vitamin C, but what they don't tell you is that vitamin C is a complex and it has to be food grade. See, the true quality of vitamin C is not always going to be in a pill form. It's going to be through a quality food. Now, you can get some powdered versions of a fruit that's been dried out and packaged. It's better to get it from a living actual fruit, but you do the best you can. But get it from a food grade source. Just getting ascorbic acid will acidify your stomach, but it won't give you the vitamin C complex needed to combat true cellular oxidation. See, they don't want people to know that. They want you to take their products and think, well, I'm taking vitamin C, but you're just taking ascorbic acid. You're not taking the true food grade vitamin C complex. And then vitamin C usually works with other nutrients. You got to make sure your magnesium levels are good. You got to make sure you got enough zinc. It's a lot of things that work together to make the other things work better. But see, when you don't eat a good balanced diet with the wide nutritional spectrum to make sure you're getting all your vitamins, your minerals, your enzymes, all the micronutrients, phytonutrients, or whatever you can get, from eating real food, then your body is not going to process each individual nutrient efficiently. Because people used to just naturally eat what they grew, and you usually grew a variety of foods. If you were people in a tropical climate typically eat a lot of fruits, pineapples, mangoes, papayas, coconuts, all kinds of things that they can find just off the tree. They're not chemically ripening them and picking them before they're ripe and chemically ripening them in a refrigerated trucks that are being transported 20, 30, 48 hours in a refrigerated truck where it's disconnected from the source. The nutrients are already starting to die. And then because of the food quality, we tend to overcook our food because we're afraid of, eating food that's got issues with it. The reason you hear about all these quote unquote listeria outbreaks is because the food quality is in very unsanitary conditions. And a lot of this food is GMO. So it just has issues. It doesn't, it attracts bad microbes because it's fake food. Just like if you put anything rotten, it's going to adapt to bad microbes. Well, fake food does that naturally. And so you have to, people, that's why they want a society pumped full of antibiotics. Antibiotics are terrible because they reset and eliminate your entire microbiome, the good, the bad, and the ugly. See, I get it. If you have sepsis or some kind of extreme condition, I get it. You're going to have to be on a strong antibiotic because most people, if you let it get too bad, even doing oregano oil and thyme and clove and all these other grapes, fruit seed extract, all these other things, it may not reach your body enough unless you do it intravenously. And you can't put those things in your bloodstream. So the moral of the story is don't let your body get to the state into such a condition of degradation that you must rely solely on these pharmaceuticals. And that's the problem. Yeah, antibiotic, anti-life. Break down the etymology of the word. Biotic, bio means life. Anti means against. They're literally using the language that they taught you to show you that what they're giving you is not going to be good. Yes, you can stop. Well, let me just put it this way. You might not even stop the issue. You might suppress the issue and allow it to go somewhere deeper in the body, only to remanifest itself stronger and more resistant than it was before. Oh yeah, and I want to thank you all for helping me get to 2K subscribers on my health channel. That's a big deal, because this channel was definitely heavily suppressed. So even to make it to 2K, I appreciate all of those who sub to this channel. I used to have it monetized, but YouTube just doesn't. You have to push out so much content until I just didn't have the time to do that, and of course, it lost that status. Yeah, onion and garlic in the natural forms are very potent. Natural sulfur compounds are great. Yeah, castor oil is great. Iodine. Let me tell you something. I had something one time on my skin. I had a skin thing around my hairline, and I thought it was like cancer. It was like a real ugly looking. I don't know if it was a wart or a rogue mole or something, and it was just horrible. So I looked up a few things and I realized I had some nascent iodine, right? So I took some nascent iodine, I took some crushed garlic, and I took the oil, the juice from the crushed garlic. I mixed it with nascent iodine, and I added a little bit of real castor oil. I put it on that thing, it went away completely. So if you got skin tags, you got moles or anything like that, look into getting some nascent, or some people use povidone, or I forgot what you call it, iodine, but I use nascent iodine. You probably can use potassium iodine, but I like nascent iodine because I've used it. And I crushed some organic garlic. Make sure your garlic is organic. They got fake garlic, fake ginger root. They got all kinds of stuff going around that they've made in the lab. All right. So make sure it's real. Real garlic looks brown on the side. It looks like it came out the ground. It doesn't have a white, rooted look to it. The roots look dark, like it pulled out the dirt or something like that. You got to kind of know. That's why it's good to go to a farm and look how real fruits that come out the ground of somebody who didn't compromise, and you'll see how real food looks. And so when you go to a supermarket or something, you'll realize this ain't real, because I've seen what real garlic looks like when it comes out the ground. See, people used to have this experience. People now, the younger generation, they think that oranges don't have seeds. But when I came up, oranges had so many seeds, you either ate them or you had to constantly spit them out. But now I bet you most of these young people, they don't even realize that oranges have a lot of seeds. They're not used to it. Just like grapes. You talk to somebody 18 and under, they're like, seeds have grapes in them? Because it's hard to find any grape seeds. And even the ones you find, like glow grapes that have a seed in them, they're usually they're not organic, and they're full of pesticides. And so it's a constant battle. And what I do when I do the best I can to get my fruits and vegetables, make sure you have a good quality baking soda. I get Red Mill baking soda and some good organic vinegar. And I clean the fruits and vegetables very well. If I get some chicken, make sure the chicken is as organic and natural as you can. It's hard to find real chicken, but if you do, I clean the chicken in some clean, purified, filtered water, and I add a little baking soda. I mean, not baking soda. I add a little vinegar to the water as I'm cleaning the chicken. So it's just little things I do, because you don't know the conditions, the storage, the sanitation behind how the food is prepared, because this society is banking on you just going to your local health practitioner and is getting another round of antibiotics until your entire gut microbe is done. And now you're either dependent on stronger and stronger antibiotics until you have some systematic failure or breakdown. Because most people don't realize all these miraculous illnesses, quote, I put miraculous in quotations, illnesses that the pharmacia people rebrand and relabel the symptoms of, are just a microbiome failure or sabotage by antibiotics, by toxic foods and pesticides and a whole bunch of things that they will never tell you. Isn't it interesting? Like we have the USDA, we have the FDA, we have all these so-called government agencies and institutions that's supposed to make sure, and yet they're the ones promoting this poison. Most people don't know that canola oil is listed as a pesticide. Anything that kills a bug, it kills life. If it kills any kind of bug, what makes you think it's healthy for you? I tell people that Raid, people used to spray Raid. Raid is filled with a neurotoxin. So most people don't think you should never spray Raid. I get it. If you got a problem, you want the bugs dead. But if it's killing the bugs that are alive, why don't you think it'll affect your living cells? So we have to start thinking that if something's able to kill life, why wouldn't it affect me if I'm alive just like the bug? People want to put rat poison and stuff around the house. No, you got to be careful. Look there. First of all, clean your house persistently and well. I grew up with really old people. Trust me, my grandmother did not let me halfway clean the house. All right. I mean, hands and knees, scrubbing, getting in the corners, sweeping the corners and the edges before you vacuum, shampooing the carpets, taking out the windows, washing both sides of the windows, getting all the cracks in the windowsill. I mean, she made me clean country style. That's why, and my father, I give him credit. He taught nobody in my family. One thing my family did was hard work. It was all about hard work. We didn't halfway. You was not missing anything. So learn how to clean really efficiently and learn how to use natural products. They're not full of chemicals. I get it. Everybody likes to have a little bleach here and there. But if you do use it, just make sure you got the windows open and make sure you use it sparingly. But in the meantime, use natural products. There's a lot of natural things you can use that clean. Now, I get it. When it comes to stuff like the toilet and the tub and all that, do what you got to do. Some people just say, you know what? It ain't clean until I use bleach. I know what that's like. But bleach does have an effect on your body. And also, what I do also is I take a few drops of iodine. Right now, I have potassium iodide with a few drops of sea kelp in it, right? Iodine helps to block the chlorine, the bromide, and all the other halide elements that are in the environment. The water, even if you got a good shower filter, get a shower filter. But the tap water has chlorine in it. It has fluoride. It has all these halide elements that block iodine receptors in your body. You block iodine, your body's gonna have a thyroid issue that's gonna affect your pituitary gland. It's gonna affect your hormones. It's gonna affect your hair growth. So a lot of people they're looking, it's like, why is my hair thinning or falling out? They never think iodine. Now you have to be careful. Again, I'm not a medical professional. This is not medical advice, entertainment, educational, informational purposes only. Got to get my fair use in there. I don't want nobody to, I'm telling you my personal experience. But also realize that we have so many chemicals that disrupt hormones and a lot of things. So you have to start thinking, about how we're being assaulted by chemicals and toxins and how those things throw everything off, and it starts at a microbiome level. Yeah, you can get a good quality borax. You can put it in your laundry. You can put it just like you can put baking soda in your laundry. You can use, if you got wooden floors, you can use a little bit of vinegar, olive oil, a lemon, stuff like that. And you can add a few essential oils. You can clean your wood that way. It works very well. Of course, you got to know you have to use the right proportions, and you need to test it in a small area to make sure that, first of all, the quality of your wood, make sure that you didn't over sand it and it's not too thin. It's a lot of things you need to know before you do things. So check all your boxes and then try to find out all the natural stuff. Sometimes you may need to do a harsh cleaning on your house. And then after you do a harsh cleaning, using a little harsher chemicals, make sure your windows are open. And then you use the good stuff and you don't use the harsher chemicals anymore, depending on the quality of your house. I get it. If some things are so filthy, you had all kinds of mold going on, you might have to replace the drywall. You might have to replace, some of the floorboards or something like that, because mold can find areas in crawl spaces and cause issue in your HVAC system, your AC, and your heat could be blowing out mildew, moldy air. And people don't realize that's why I hate using AC. I hate using AC. Because the whole premise of AC is that you have this, first of all, it uses coolant, a chemical, freon, and we don't think about the gas that comes off of that freon that's not good for our bodies. But not just that, it's this constantly damp, like air that goes to these vents. The vents stay damp. When you use the AC, those vents stay damp. Anything stays damp long enough, it's going to create mildew, mold. You're not giving it time to dry out. And so the air is blowing through these moldy vents, and you're breathing this stuff constantly. That's going to put a burden on your body trying to deal with the internal things when you have so many things happening on the outside. Now, I get it. If you live in the South, in Texas, Florida, Arizona, Southern California, it's hot. Look, you got to do what you got to do. But just be aware. I just want people to be aware. Just got to be aware. Sometimes when you got an opportunity to let your AC rest, let it rest. Let it dry out. Let those vents dry out. Don't just keep constantly running. Not only are you going to save money, get a fan. If it's a nice day, open your window. Yeah, I know they've got all kinds of air, but you got to do the best you can. Unless you got unlimited resources to keep paying for people to fix your HVAC system and you know how to clean these things properly and do all that stuff, you got to do the best you can. What's going on, Sword of Truth, peace and blessings? XC, what's going on? I mean, they got GMO mosquitoes that Bill Gates' company and United Nations are releasing out here. There's a lot of things going on. Yeshua HaMashiach, welcome. Yeah, Manuka honey is great for wounds. It's great for antimicrobial or a lot of things. You said Lugio's iodine? I'm going to look into that. Yeah, natural mosquito spray. You can use, you said yarrow, proof liquor. You can use, what's that stuff? You can use peppermint oils. And I take some alcohol and peppermint oil. You can use citronella. You can use lemongrass. You can use a whole bunch of natural things. There's certain plants that that are deterrents for mosquitoes, spiders. Get those plants, use those natural oils. Avoid just using all this stuff, man. They got a lot of these things in the store, they got a whole bunch of chemicals in there, and they're going to add to the toxic load and burden on your body, create more cell death, and create more fungus. And then the more fungus, the more symptoms. The more symptoms, the more big pharmakia is going to create a new word to interpret your symptoms, to say you got this new thing going on and we need to give you a drug, a procedure, a surgery, something that's only dealing with the symptom and not the root cause. And they're going to take more and more and more for you until you're completely dependent on government services, and you're going to trust whatever the government gives you out of desperation. Oh, you got cooling sheets? And honestly, to tell you the truth, and this depends on your level of resilience and health, the extremes are natural to strengthen the body. Sometimes when it's hot, I'm not talking about when it's oppressive, it's good to let your body adapt to certain different environments. I'm teaching myself. I'm learning not to turn on the AC every time I'm hot. Get the fan out, move around, drink, I don't like to drink cold water often, but when it's hot, is when I do drink cold water. Because cold water, it stops the natural progression of your body's digestion, because cold shocks the body. It causes the body to lock up and seize up. It affects the blood flow. And so I used to like to drink warm, but when it's extremely hot, your body's warming up. So a little cold can keep you cool. Um, there are a lot of things you can do to keep yourself cool. Take cool showers. Don't always have to take hot showers. Cool showers can be very cooling to the body. You got to get used to it. Some people can take cold showers. Think about what people did before the water was hot. They either had to boil a whole bunch of water on an old wooden stove or something, or a cast iron stove, or they just took cold baths or cold showers. People used to have to make it work before we had all this ingenuity. So there are ways you can do it, and people were much more tough and resilient the further you go back in time. Yeah, Dr. Berg, unfortunately, he's into Scientology. He says a lot of good things, but I think he is in that Scientology stuff. So I mean, this is what I do. When I find out somebody's into some weird kind of ideology, as long as what they say aligns with, doesn't require me to go into some new age philosophy or something like that, and it seems practical based on natural foods and something that I can research myself, I'm cool with it. I just don't get into anything when they start talking about new age kind of stuff. I stay away from all that stuff. You say I love Sort of Truth says I love cold showers. Water doesn't get cold enough. Hey, if you know how to do it, you can do it. Sometimes you gotta get used to it. Sorva C says one content creator said the C word. I use code words, and y'all can probably help me out on code words when you can. But it comes from the buildup of chemicals over years, and that's how they're able to time when you're most likely to get it. Well, here's the thing, and there's some kind of credibility to that. I would say this. Remember that the C word is just a whole bunch of cells that have become toxic and have affected their proliferation and their replication. So what we need to ask, remember, it's more like a fungus that takes over the cells, and it's really the fungus that's spreading from the toxic cells, because like you say, the body does get to a critical mass of saturation of toxins. So if you do have an insult of toxins and unhealthy eating habits and bad lifestyles and stressors and spiritual issues that your body is not designed to function in, and they're persistent and consistent, then you will create more cell death, more cell oxidation, more poison, toxic buildup, your body breaking down the toxins, creating toxic byproducts that accumulate in your blood, that accumulate in your organs and cause failures. Then eventually, as that fungus grows in your body from cell death, you will proliferate those toxic cells through that fungus microbiome. It's the microbiome that's programming the cells to respond, because the microbiome is a response to the environment or whatever you put in your body. So if people ate to feed the microbiome that's healthy, the cells would be all right, but we're not taught to think like that. For example, when you eat natural foods that keep your blood alkaline, your stomach needs to be acidic, but your blood needs to be slightly alkaline, then that's great. Eat the right foods, healthy fruits and vegetables, balanced foods, no meats with antibiotics, hormones, steroids, and all this stuff that affects, a lot of things in your body. But once your body starts to change on these subtle levels, then it messes everything up. Hey, let me tell you, when I see mold, like one thing I use to keep mold off of the tub is I take baking soda and vinegar, right? Get a spray bottle, get some regular white vinegar. It doesn't even have to be organic. Just get the biggest, cheapest bottle of white vinegar you can find. Spray it. And if it's real bad, put a little, you can use the cheap baking soda, Arm & Hammer, and sprinkle a little baking soda on there. Let it fizz. And then after you let it sit for a minute, then I take a little bit of that bleach spray, spray it, and just wipes right off. Or you could just use vinegar, and then a good, it doesn't have to be toxic, but a decent cleaner can get rid of the mold and mildew. It depends on how bad it is. But and always keep your bathroom door open to let that humid environment. If you got a window, you notice they don't make bathrooms with windows. It's like the further you go back in time, bathrooms used to have windows because that moist environment is a breeding ground for fungus and mold. But now they want to have everybody a fan. But the problem with the fan is that the fan is not as efficient. So, use what you got, but also let that air circulate. On a day when you got to open the window, open the bathroom door, let the sunlight come in. Sunlight naturally kills a lot of fungus and mold. The sun, the UV radiation, it kills a lot of bad things, bad microorganisms. So sunlight, letting your house air out every now and again when the air is as clear as possible. Do these things and it helps. I'm just giving y'all a breakdown right now because we haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes that I want to talk about yet. You said no windows in our bathroom? Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. It used to be like that. You used to be able to open the window and let all the mildew get out and all that stuff. You found that neem oil helps clean my blood and creates more of an alkaline in my body. Yeah, if it works for you, if it works for you, it works for you. Everybody's body is different. You have to know your sensitivity. Some people can do things that are going to be abrasive to others. You have to know your own body, test things out. If it doesn't help the issue, then find something that does. What works for somebody else may not work for you because our conditioning and the way our body is just different. Our biochemistry is just different. I know one thing that I had to stop doing, and this was hard. I used to drink a lot of fruit juices, in the past, and I used to ignore the fact that most of these fruit juices had 40 to 50 grams of sugar, and that's enough sugar for a full meal. You're not supposed to ingest that much refined sugar in your body at all. Nevertheless, in one sitting of drinking a beverage. Because what happens is that anytime you have sugar that is not packaged in fruits and vegetables or something with fiber, enzymes, vitamins, minerals, because the fiber and the prebiotic and fiber and stuff helps your body break down the sugars in the food. That's why when you eat fruit, it doesn't raise your blood sugar like if you eat candy, because the fruit it packages the sugar in a way that your body can utilize the sugar, and it has fiber that helps lower your blood sugar. But when you just eat foods that remove all the healthy natural fibers and just have nothing but refined carbs and refined sugars, your body doesn't know what to do with that sugar. And so that sugar just builds up in your blood, oxidizing your cells, destroying your arterial walls, and then cholesterol, which is a natural good thing in the body. It's every cell wall is made of cholesterol. Your nerves have a myelin sheath, which is cholesterol. Your brain is mainly cholesterol fat. Your steroid hormones are produced by cholesterol. So the reason that cholesterol becomes a bad thing in terms of blood clots, strokes, heart attacks, cardiac infarctions, and stuff like that is because all this oxidations and lesions and lacerations in your arterial walls and your veins, You have little cuts. Even the fake chemical salt that people get that's just created in the lab that they make using chloride and sodium. In nature, you won't find sodium and chloride together alone. You just won't find that in nature. You find 70 to 90 micro minerals all together in a spectrum. You never just see sodium and chloride. Your body doesn't recognize sodium and chloride together alone. So when you take this mechanical, fake, chemically created salt, it just accumulates in your body just like refined sugar, acting like little shards of glass in your bloodstream, just cutting up your arteries. And then cholesterol's response is to clot those plugs, those cuts, keep them from bleeding out. Your body responds to persistent bleeding in your arterial wall. So cholesterol plugs those holes up. And so it causes your blood to clot. And if you keep doing the same thing, your body's going to keep allocating cholesterol to clot up in your arteries. So what happens is people don't stop putting the fake salt and the fake refined sugar in their blood, and then they end up getting on statin drugs and all this other stuff, and sodium, potassium pumps, and whatever else drugs that these sorcerers give you. But they don't stop. Like, the worst thing you can do is say, oh, I'm gonna stop salt. Your body needs salt. Sodium is one of the most critical nutrients for your brain and heart function. But people have been afraid. They've been told to fear salt, where they don't think that all salt isn't created equal. So salt isn't the problem. What kind of salt is what you need to think about. Most people don't realize getting a good quality sea salt is a solution. Celtic salt, Himalayan salt, but just make sure it doesn't have lead, because a lot of companies have gotten hip to people trying to get the good stuff. So there's a lot of counterfeits out there. It's getting increasingly hard to have a trustworthy company that's going to give you a quality product, because supply and demand allows more competition to come in, cutting corners and using fillers and promoting something as something else without the quality. So sometimes you got to go get those mom and pops. You know, when they destroyed a lot of mom and pops businesses, they also destroyed a lot of access to quality things where people used to make with their own hands. Now you got corporations that only care about their bottom line, their profit margins, and they don't care about the quality of product. They just care about the illusion, the optics, the aesthetics of the product. They'll put all the advertising words, they'll put organic, non-GMO, all of that on there, and it still could be garbage. Yeah, sea moss is good. You just got to find a place that's harvested in a clean environment with a company that packages quality products. See, when you hear about sea moss, all sea moss isn't created. Yeah, even Irish sea moss. Since Dr. Sebi, everybody's talking about Irish sea moss, Irish sea moss. Okay, do you know where it's coming from? Do you trust the company that's packaging it? Can you trust that they'll give you quality product? You know, the worst devilish satanic companies can package something pure Irish sea moss, and it could not be pure Irish sea moss. We have to accept the fact that the world lies to you and deceives you. So let me get to some of the topics, and we're gonna get back on these. I'm flying all over the place, y'all, but I'm just talking about a lot of things because I'm just talking with you all. I just want to talk about fungus and what's really causing it, and just break down a lot of things. Salt of any kind is bad for me because I have cirrhosis of the liver. I can have potassium chloride. Well, yeah, I mean, see, a specific situation. And cirrhosis, you know, there are things I've heard from my own experience that can help with the scarring of the liver. Now, you need to do your own research. Some people say stuff like serrapeptase and nattokinase can help remove the scarring of the liver, and these proteolytic enzymes, and of course, cutting down sugar, refined sugar, refined carbs helps the because when it comes to sugar, refined sugars, your body can't tell the difference between eating donuts and drinking alcohol. If you're eating nothing but processed foods, refined sugars and carbs, your body's gonna process that in your liver, just like you just drunk a whole bunch of vodka, gin, whiskey, cognac, and everything else. It's not gonna see the difference because the oxidative effect and stress on the liver is going to produce the same result. So if you really care about your liver, you have to really eat the right foods and progressively. Don't just start overloading your liver even with good food. Eat less, have space between your meals, listen to your body. If you start having a whole bunch of indigestion and upset stomach, you mean that whatever you put in your body is not aligning with your gut microbe. So you might need to get on a probiotic. You might need, like I take betaine hydrochloride and apple cider vinegar to help acidify my stomach. If I ever think I ate something that's rotten or not good, first thing I do is take some betaine hydrochloride and some apple cider vinegar. The reason that dogs can eat out the trash and for the most part not get sick is because their stomach acid is much higher than ours. The reason that animals can eat raw meat is because the low pH of their stomach acid, it kills all the bad microorganisms that exist and live that break down in meat and cause all kind of conditions. So naturally, our stomach acid is supposed to be very acid, but because of the bad quality of food and all this stuff and the injections that they give people at birth and to matriculate into elementary school and all that, most people have a sabotaged body and their stomach is not producing enough pepsin and hydrochloric acid and all these things, because that's the first stage. Well, the first stage is the massification, the chewing, and the saliva in your mouth. Most people have saliva dysfunction. They don't produce enough saliva, and their saliva doesn't have the right enzymes to have that first phase. If you put good food in your mouth to help break down, if you have a mouthful of candida and your tongue is white and your gums are inflamed, that's going to affect your microbiome and your saliva as well. So you got to start addressing these issues, because you have to think that your gastrointestinal tract is one solid line, like they say, from the rooter to the tutor. All right. So whatever's in your mouth is in your gut. Whatever's in your gut is going to be in your mouth. Whatever's in your colon is going to end up in your mouth. So you want to make sure that your gut tract is clean through and through. The first thing you can do if you have fungus in the body is make sure your body is eliminating waste efficiently. This is probably the most underlooked and underrated thing you can do, is to make sure your body's eliminating waste. Holding waste in your body is basically putrefaction. Fermenting waste will create fungus that will track all the way up through your lining. It messes with your stomach, your intestines. It'll destroy the vital microorganisms that help break down food, to help produce enzymes, to create vitamins. It will distort your everything. Give you acid reflux, bad breath, teeth, start getting cavities and teeth rot and all this stuff going on. And then that's why you hear people saying they got the C word in their colon and their gut and all this stuff, is because of waste. Before you put anything in your body, make sure you're getting the waste out. Everybody knows how, if you have children, if you have babies, you know how frequent babies go. Healthy babies, you feed them, it's like clockwork. They're going to poop. It's not going to be an hour later. It's not going to be 2 hours later. That food should be so pure, especially if they're breastfed, that baby's going to poop really quick. That food is not going to sit in the body. It's going to go in your body. The body's going to extract the nutrients and it's going to exit. Then that process might slow down because the food becomes more fibrous and all that, but that process shouldn't slow down that much as we get older. There are people going weeks or months without evacuating their bowels. That's a death trap. That's a death trap. And people don't want to talk about it. But everybody want to talk about what did they die from? Colon C word, intestinal C word, or stomach C word, or something like that. Look, you got to do this. People are running to these sorcerers before they even do the most basic examining of their own body. You don't need no person in a lab coat to tell you that you need to make sure waste is coming out your body. You need to drink enough clean water, not too much, but enough. And you supplement that by eating fruit. The water structure in fruit, everybody heard of structured water? Well, let me give you a brief overview of structured water. In nature, water flows. And as it flows, it picks up nutrients and oxygen. And flowing water structures itself in a way that heals the body. But when we have water sitting on shelves and plastic bottles, it's not being structured because society doesn't view things the way God designed things to go. See, if we were in tune with God's creation, there will be plenty of structured water to access. But because of environmental poisoning and toxicity and devastation, you can't really find a lot of places that are clean enough to drink. Sir poops a lot. Chia seeds are excellent. I'll tell you personally from my experience, not only do chia seeds give you healthy omega 3s, but they give you a lot of good fiber. You can put them in any beverage. You can put them in smoothies. They will help cleanse out your whole system and scrub. Bentonite clay. A lot of people talk about bentonite clay. And what's the hype between putting a little bit of dirt in your body? Well, it scrubs. See, in a healthy world that wasn't polluted, we could eat food right off the tree with a little dust on it, right? That little bit of dust that would naturally not only feed the good microbes in our body, because soils are full of microbes. So if you got dust floating in the air, it could feed the healthy microbes. But it can also scrub your body so that you don't have waste sitting on your lining of your gut. Just fermenting, rotting, created mold and fungus. Because that's going to affect how your body absorbs food. It's going to affect the microbiome, which is crucial to everything. So I need to, y'all know me, I'm all over the place. So let's get to it. Let's get to some things before we go. So again, a breakdown. All things are breaking down, and fungus and mold is part of that process where microbes form in the presence of death, dead or toxic cells, and take on the nature of breaking things down. And what people don't understand is that as your body breaks down dead things, it produces toxic byproducts. This is where your liver and your colon and it breaks down these toxic compounds into things that your body can deal with, like water and carbon dioxide. So if you're wondering that why God designed that we exhale carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide and water are byproducts of cellular metabolism. It breaks down a lot of very volatile, toxic things, and your body breaks them down into compounds that either come out your urine, the other side, or you respirate the toxins out. This is why in 2020, when people wanted to put a face covering over their face, they were sabotaging their own body's ability to eliminate toxic byproduct. And then, the hypoxia, that's the oxygen, the deprivation of oxygen, but not only stifling the body's effect to eliminate carbon dioxide. I mean, I'm trying to break down fungus in practical ways. Like I was bringing up an analogy. When you see fungus outside, say a tree fell, right? And as the tree started to rot, you saw fungus on that tree. And then if that fungus grew, it will also, if there's an insult, if that tree next to that fungus has any kind of issue, the fungus will spread to that tree. And it can continue to spread if the environment is moist and there's something, an irritant to that environment. The fungus will progress. And even healthy trees will start to break down. And this is essentially what happens in your cells. When healthy cells start to be overtaken by fungus, the replication of these cells is more less healthy cells and more fungus. So what you're seeing in the proliferation of growth, when they call it the big C word, cancer, is you see the fungus cells replicating because they have overtaken the healthy cells because of the environment and the condition of the body. See, we're not told to think like that. You're told you have to go get some institutionalized terminology by some egghead that was indoctrinated by Rockefeller Medical Industries, built upon a false theory from Louis Pasteur, a Freemason chemist. And you're assuming that what this person said is the truth because they're promoted through government institutions and they've been given credentials by a corrupt, lying world. You're just assuming because of the way the world promotes these people and puts them in positions of authority in terms of knowledge. But what is knowledge without wisdom? You can have a head full of lies. Does that make you smart or a fool? Because you haven't acknowledged the truth, which only comes from God, because only the Creator can tell you how things should be. That's the truth. The world can't tell you the truth. The world can give you information, and all knowledge isn't the truth. And this is the problem with the world, especially with the proliferation of internet. Knowledge is increased. The proliferation of information is ubiquitous. But the truth is at an all-time low. So there's no discerning, no wisdom and discerning of knowledge. Now, people just think everything is true because of who's promoting it. Because if you love the world and your identity is in the world, then whatever the world promotes, you're going to establish that as true. Only because the world establishes your pride and identity, and for the sake of your ego and your pride, you're going to go along with the world so that whatever the world offers you in terms of status and identity and wealth, you can boast on that. And see, that's a heart issue. That's part of the sin nature. The people believe these institutions and they just can't fathom that the institutions could be lying to them because they've been indoctrinated since kindergarten or pre-K to think that this is where you get information. See, the government knew what they were doing. Make sure that the parents have to work so much that the children get all the knowledge from government institutions like public schools. They're not going to build an ontology based on the image and truth of God, but on a secular world that's full of lies. And so they indoctrinate the children fundamentally on theories and false narratives at a very early age, building a foundation for bigger lies to appear as the truth, and supported by family who don't know better because they are living for the world. You ever wonder why you just can't, like when people will run around talking about the boogeyman is getting me in 2020, you gotta do this and you gotta do that, and you need to get a diagnostic procedure and put this Q-tip up in your brain, and you need to. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, why do you believe these people? Oh, because you got symptoms. Why do you believe they're interpreting your symptoms correctly? Why do you believe that? Because they're doctors. What does that even mean? Who created the institution, the infrastructure? Do you even know who built the foundation? They don't care. Because you know why? Most people have their jobs and they build their ego upon their jobs and say, hey, I'm an educator, I'm a teacher, I'm a medical professional, practitioner, whatever. Because I want to elevate myself as an expert, I can't believe that the world's going to lie, because that means that all the knowledge that I acquired and learned on my specialty might be a lie. And if I acknowledge the truth, I can't walk around boasting on people that I'm smarter than them, that I'm entitled to this wealth and luxurious life because I've got I'm doctor so and so. I got double masters and I got all these credentials. And people walk around in the vanity of their mind. And that's why they cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because all of it is about ego and pride. And that's a heart issue. That's a sin issue. They don't care about evidence. How many times did it come out that Fauci and all these people were lying to you? And what people do? Make more excuses. Well, it wasn't Trump. It was Biden. It wasn't Biden. It was Trump. It wasn't this. It was that. All of them are lying. Now what's your excuse? Well, you're not a doctor. Why do you trust doctors? And let me qualify this. Just because a doctor can mend a broken bone, suture a laceration, or do some practical things that can be helpful, doesn't mean that everything they're offering is built upon the truth. I can do a lot of things, but I wouldn't call myself an expert because I can do some things. I mean, let's just be consistent. Anybody can do some things well. It doesn't mean they're going to do all things well, or doesn't mean that they're right in all things. So why don't people use that same consistent thought pattern when it comes to these so-called self-declared experts? Bill Gates, he's promoted as a software engineer, but he's telling you that you need to roll up your sleeve and get updated. And people are like, well, I guess so, because he's a billionaire. Billionaires got to know something, because how else did they get rich? Well, maybe it's because of the Freemason satanic rituals and sacrifices and collusion with the worldly satanic agendas that elevates people who are willing to forfeit Christ to promote evil in the world. Maybe they reward people who sell their soul. Maybe. Yeah, we have a great physician. And again, I'm not telling people to avoid anything. I'm telling you to use wisdom and discernment. There are some things where I will take my behind right to the hospital if it happened to me. And there are some things that I will just humble myself in prayer and say, Lord, please heal me and give me the knowledge to remedy this situation, because I'm not going to them to get injected and prodded and cut and all this other stuff. To each their own. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not doing it. You got to use wisdom, discernment to figure out what you can go to these people for and what you can't. Just like orthodontic dentistry. Most people don't realize they're destroying their teeth by all this abrasiveness, because they're not going to tell you that the reason you keep getting cavities is a candida issue. Maybe a root canal issue. It may be the fillings that they put in your mouth, creating mold and fungus that's rotting out your gums. But they won't tell you that. Because how much do they charge for tooth extractions, root canals, and implants and all that? Thousands of dollars. How are they going to mess? You're going to mess up their racket by telling the truth. I get it. I know people don't want to hear this. But I had to learn some of these things the hard way. This is all my experience. I'm going to say it again. I'm not a medical professional. This ain't professional advice. I'm telling you how I think and how I move concerning my faith in Christ, to how I discern and walk in wisdom concerning how I interact with this world. What's going on, Jane Doe? Peace and blessings. I'm just reading the chat real quick. And the first thing I do when I have any problem is I pray to the Lord. I say, Lord, first, before I even ask him to heal anything, I say, Lord, please increase my faith. and give me wisdom and instruction that I can be better for your will. I'm more concerned about my spiritual condition when my flesh or my physical condition is afflicted, because I see everything beginning with my faith in Christ about how I'm living. And so I don't want to ask God for nothing before I ask him to continue making me better for him. There's always something that I need help with. And I want to make sure that my spirit is right with the Lord before I even open my mouth to ask him anything. And so me and the Lord, we have good talks before I even ask him of anything. And usually I said, according to his will, Lord, just give me the strength to endure. And if it be in your will, please help to heal me, Lord. If it be your will. If not, give me the strength to endure. I mean, that's how I'm not entitled to anything. I realized that. It took me a long time to accept that. What's going on, Mackenzie? I'm not entitled to anything. God could take my life and be perfectly just, holy, and good. Now I have faith in Jesus, so my soul is secure. But I can't. If God wants to take me home, he can take me home. But you know what? Jesus says any tree does not bear good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. I try to make myself useful to the glory of God. I don't look, when I hear people are suffering or in pain, I pray for them. I know what that's like. When I hear people who are extremely old and they're worried, until you really been near somebody who's in their 90s and you spent their last moments and you just pray with them and you just, talked about the Lord and kept them in good spirits and as they transition, there's a lot you could do to the glory of God to show love. Pray with them. Prayer itself, we diminish the power of prayer. But pray with somebody if they're in, people used to visit the afflict and the sick, and I could do it more. But people used to visit people when they were afflicted and sick and pray with them. It's like people don't even do that stuff as much anymore. And we're wondering why this world is continually getting worse. Yeah, I haven't even heard much about this new so-called satanic pope, but I'm pretty sure they're going to have a lot of propaganda coming out with this person, and it's really a joke. But the news is always promoting jokes. What's going on, Sarah Harridge, Erica L, peace and blessings, Lamb's Grace, Corey G, what's going on? All right, let me get back to it. I'm just making sure I'm checking what y'all talking about. I want to be interactive as much as possible. And it's good to share information. Anything somebody shares, make sure you pray about it. Make sure you do your own research, because remember, everybody's body is different. It's our responsibility to do our own research, to pray about the things that people have, and we must not only walk in our faith in Christ, but let the Holy Spirit give us instruction and guidance. Don't be impulsive and quick to react. Take time to pray and be patient and wait on the Lord, because things might come out as you study. You might learn things that you need to know for your individual situation. So like I was saying, we see fungus spread on trees and plants all the time, but mold will always form in fungus in deep, damp, warm, humid places. And and people, we see it out in nature, but yet people don't think the same thing happens in the body. We see plants being overtaken by fungus. We see it on the mold spreading from the wall, but somehow we think that our cells are impervious to the same condition, even though our cells are breaking down just like everything else. And like I said, human cells have a natural turnover cycle of death and regeneration. And where toxic and dead cells have to be removed by the, I'll call it the immune system for the sake of using terminology, but the body's removal system, and it creates biofilms, because when these collections of fungus start to get overgrown, your body starts creating biofilms to to kind of ward off and like it protects the fungus from your health. It's like a barrier, but it also makes it harder to destroy the fungus. So it's a bad and good thing. Okay, it cuts it off, but it also protects it. And this is why you have to really cut out the bad habits, lifestyles, and start focusing on eating a nutritionally balanced diet and stuff like that. Because if you keep causing damage in your body, the damage is going to accumulate faster than your body can repair. And that's the perfect breeding ground for fungus. And if you look at cysts and boils and the C word and all that stuff, your body is warding off toxic cells. Now, people call it infection. Infection is just when cells have taken on a toxic or nature and die, and there's a lot of dead cells. Like pus is nothing but toxic and dead cells that your body's trying to get rid of. Now, what we don't wonder is what is the cause of these toxic and dead cells. Even pimples is when your skin is warding off toxic dead cells for whatever reason. Your skin, like they say, is your second kidney, and your body tries to detox to your skin. So usually when you have internal issues, it will show in a couple of places: your skin, your eyes, your nails, your teeth, and your hair. And then you can look at your tongue. Your body has a lot of telltale signs. Even the stiffness in your body, low energy, the fatigue, often a sign of fungus. When you have rogue toxic cells, you're feeding. Think about this: when you eat toxic food, you're feeding the candida, the fungus, more than you're feeding the healthy cells. So think about this: every time you eat processed seed oils, fake food, you're feeding fungus. You're not feeding your healthy cells. You're feeding the fungus so that it can overtake more and more healthy cells until you have bigger and bigger symptoms, leading to a problem. And trust me, the pharmakeia sorcerers have a big book, and they can they can throw a dart and find any so-called illness in that book and say you have it. Because all of the symptoms are very subjective and vague. Let me show you something. Medical error is the third leading cause of death. Medical error. I don't know why it's taking so long. The government don't like these searches. Talking too much truth here. What's going on? I love Jesus. Peace and blessings. Now think about this. The number 1 and 2 leading causes of death is heart disease and the C word, which are also caused by a lot of toxic things that create the fungus-like environment. The fake foods, the fake salts, the refined sugars, the seed oils, the processed GMO foods, the pesticide, the endocrine disruptors, the xenoestrogens, the nutritional deficiencies, the forever chemicals, the PFAS, the microplastics, the BPA, whatever you want to call it. The stratospheric aerosol and injection, spraying of the sky, geoengineering, weather modification, the radiation, the HARP, all this stuff is cooking and oxidizing our cells. on an almost constant basis. To tell you the truth, it speaks to the resilience of our bodies that we can take so much insult from our environment and still live as long as we do. That just shows you how wonderfully and fearfully we're made. That we live in a basically a living microwave. When you look at all the electrification and smart technology and radiation, they're turning our whole environment into a microwave. And then people are wondering why we have all these issues, these symptoms. But they don't care about the smart dust, the nanoparticles, the strontium, barium, aluminum, the sulfur compounds, and everything else that they're putting in it, the frequencies, the fluoride, the chlorine, the hormones, the pesticides. Do you know in my state in Maryland, they spray pesticides in the air? Let me see if I can find that article. Let me see if I can find it. I'm not in. Look at this. The state of Maryland does engage in aerial spraying of pesticides primarily for mosquito control. And here's my whole issue with articles like this, right? Since we're going to talk, let's talk. Who approved these PFAS chemicals? That same FDA, the same USDA, the same government organizations approved the things that want to ban them. So the question we have to ask, why did they ever get approved? How do people just put any products out there and assume that they're safe? Or do they already know they're safe and was that the plan altogether? Something's just not adding up. They know that what they're spraying and what they're putting in the water is toxic. That Monsanto glyphosate, that stuff is lethal. Now, this is the funny part. This is the Maryland government. Now, they want you to fear mosquitoes, right? They want you to fear mosquitoes. But if that was the case, then why is this happening? If mosquitoes ought to be feared, then why is this happening? Why are they releasing genetically modified mosquitoes? And then they're using their germ theory terminology, their false viral theory, to justify why we need these Frankenstein mosquitoes out here biting people. Why are we even producing mosquitoes? Oh, because people have to believe in the narratives to think that getting bit by the same thing that you hate is going to somehow make you better because the government genetically modified them. Somebody tell me what is genetically modified that has ever proven to be good? And then they're using pseudoscience, this gene editing, just like we know that the jibby jab was a gene editing technology. I put the information, I could pull it up right now, but I don't want to get the stream taken down. I'll post it in Telegram. Let me see. I'm gonna post it in Telegram for those who want these articles. Let me see. Editing. I'm pulling it up on my phone right now. All right. Let me get this off of here. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. They released billions of these in Florida, UK, all over the place. How is using a parasitic insect that causes the so-called quote unquote thing that you're trying to fight going to help you fight the thing that you claim the insect produces? And you claiming that your manipulation of the insect is the solution. You know, all the things that people can talk about here, you don't hear a lot of people talking about the destruction of our environment. The algorithm doesn't want you to talk about that. People rather talk about Shannon Sharp. People rather talk about some spoiled NFL player's son. But they don't want to talk about the very environment and food that we all need to live off of. You would think that this would be one of the topics that people would talk about. But people only think within the MK Ultra algorithmic AI-driven psychological warfare and conditioning through social media. Now social media is telling people what to think about and how to think about it. It's replaced all objective critical thinking. Where people used to research and test things for themselves. People don't want to do that no more. Give me 1 second, y'all. I had too much sweets today. So I need to take me some berberine. Give me 1 second. Every so often I had to get some sweets. You said it's berberine. Berberine is something that you should look it up. Yeah, berberine is good. Berberine is like kind of like turmeric. Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah, berberine is good. Yeah, today I decided to eat me some sweets, and I think I paid the price. I can already feel the inflammation. But luckily it wasn't too bad, but I did kind of do it overboard. Jane Doe says you can see the aluminum, other poisons they spray on us. Look at the skin under a magnifying lens. It looks like tiny sparkling glitter everywhere. Skin is not supposed to look like that. Yeah. and you know, lately I've looked at when I get in my car, I'll look at the windshield and there's like a wet kind of sticky substance on there. And it's not tree sap. And I've noticed that I've never seen anything like it. Even when it rains, I'm noticing a residue that lingers on the car. Anybody else notice that? Rain used to clean your car. Now, when it rains, and I'm not talking about pollen, there's a residue that just sits on your car, and it's extremely hard to get off unless you clean it. Yeah, turmeric is good. Lamb's Grace said, I gave up sweets over 20 years ago. I don't miss it. Yeah, that's a good thing. What's going on, Diane? Thank you. I just try to, when I do something that of course I should have, and I made sure I was pretty, active. I went to help my dad. We did a lot of work, so I definitely, like, my muscles are very sore right now because I did a lot of work and I did some walking today. Anytime I try to eat something and I have too much sugar, I make sure I move and I'm active, and I try to go do intermittent fasting and drink water to flush and give my body time to get rid of the sugar. And I work, work the muscles, get the muscles pumping. It helps the body to create a need for that sugar, that glucose. A lot of it, especially when it's refined sugars from sweets, you just got to urinate it out. Unfortunately, that's the process. And in doing that, that's also going to be a strain on your kidney. So it's good to also take some time to let your, if you don't have no blood sugar issues, have some extended intermittent fasting, um, apple cider vinegar, stuff like that, and just make sure you don't go to bed with apple cider vinegar on your teeth. I got xylitol. I take a little xylitol and mix it into my drinks. It helps create a good, stable environment for the good microbiome in the mouth. It enables healthy saliva production. Your saliva is a concentrate of vital minerals that help your teeth remineralize. But a lot of people have saliva glands dysfunction. And see, you don't realize that. Like, we should need xylitol, but all the toxic foods and injections and everything that this world gives you is to sabotage your body's natural mechanisms. Because they know that God created us and our bodies in a great way. That's why they have to tell you and lie to you that when you're born, you need to inject. And to matriculate into this public education, we got to inject. And then by the time you are a teenager, you done took hundreds of these injections. And you're wondering why your body doesn't work right. You're wondering why this is happening. I appreciate all the born day, B-day wishes. Thank you so much. Yeah, these mosquitoes are different. I mean, let me tell you the truth, man. Some of these mosquitoes are different. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not from a tropical area, but even when I went to a tropical area, these mosquitoes are different out here. They don't look normal. They're very aggressive. They're very big. Now, I know if you're from the Amazon or the Congo or the jungles of Asia or somewhere, you might be used to these aggressive big mosquitoes, but I don't recall mosquitoes being the way they are now. When I was coming up, mosquitoes were much smaller in the temperate latitude. I'm guessing the mosquitoes should be bigger in the south in the tropics, but when I was coming up, mosquitoes were little bugs. We got these giant things out here somewhere. I don't know where they came from. But I'm in the temperate zone. We don't usually get these huge mosquitoes like this. Kind of frightening. Wow, you say just watched a coal train go by. Gergaluski says by. It was at least a mile long, China bound, products of northern British Columbia, Canada. Wow. Yeah, that's true. The Jesus Clan with Dan says the governments have finally openly admitted to sky spraying. Don't expect any apologies from your friends and family, though. Of course not. Everybody thought we were crazy when we told them about the jibby jab and we told them about the symptoms in their bodies and the fifth gen and all this stuff. Oh, you just overreacting. You don't know what you're talking about. This is for you. There's something serious out there. People are dying. I'm like, yeah, we know people are dying. We're trying to tell you to look at possible rational explanations why people are dying in the current manner that they're dying. People don't want to look at how the mortality, excessive death rate was manipulated. Anybody who exposed that during that 4-year period online was censored or removed. We literally told them, they exposed how they're counting deaths, and it was like they're just making stuff up. People get hit by a car, and they were saying that it was the boogeyman that took them out, the CV. People falling off a ladder, you got the CV. There was a man who got shot 10 times in New York. They said he died of the CV. And then when we called this out, we were told crazy. But we literally went through the government site and told you how they gave themselves room to just make stuff up. We showed you that. I know you don't care, but we showed you that. I try to tell people what's going on. What's going on, Alda? He says they are, bro. Those mosquitoes are fentanyl or something. Not sure of the mosquitoes of the past. Yeah, they are, man. Those mosquitoes are crazy. And look, I just don't like to see people. Look, life is already hard enough. There's going to be things that happen to us anyway. Why add on to the pile? Why? We already battling enough things we can't control. How about the things you can control? We can't control the military operations and stuff about them trying to block out the sun, which is a vital thing for our health. This world's not going to tell you that the sun does a lot more than what they're telling us about our health. Why do you think that they want to spray the skies that even on a so-called clear day, the sky is milky and gray with spray? Or you notice the trail is right across the sun. And you notice the sun is just being blocked. There's a thin film that's just not giving you that right sunlight because they know the benefits of the sun. And people who have issues with the sun, the skin is only weakened because of all the toxins in our body and the stuff we put on our skin, on the heavy metals that sit on our skin. They create inflammation that creates sun sensitivity. They want you to think sun sensitivity is a natural phenomenon, but they don't want to think that the general inflammation in our bodies, the stuff we put on our skin, makes our skin more susceptible and sensitive to the sun. If they didn't prod us and poke us from birth, maybe our skin will be more resilient and natural sunlight wouldn't burn some people. But they want you to think, oh, it's because you're from Europe or you're light skinned or something like that. Everything but from the fact that they're weakening our bodies. Yes, there is some credibility that your skin may have more resilience if you're darker. But let's not get away from the fact that the common inflammation starts before the sun even hits our skin. Just like people, everybody's wearing glasses now. Are they going to blame the sun on that too? Like, let me give y'all an example of some of the most foolish things I've ever heard. Let me see if I could. I think these are on my health channel. I'm going to pull up something that was just crazy. Let me see if I can find one of these videos. You know what? I think it's on my backup channel, actually. If it's not my backup, it's on my other channel. Let me see. I'm going to look for it because it was a crazy article. I got to find this article. Okay, I think it's on my main channel. I got so many channels. I can't keep up with everything. Yeah, please sub to this channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Please. All right, I'm just want to pull up something real quick. All right, give me 1 second. See if I can find it. Maybe it was a short. I don't think it was a short. What could it have been? Okay, I can't find it. I hope they didn't remove it. But it was I think they were saying that the sun was causing heart attacks. It was something ridiculous. It was something ridiculous, y'all. I'm looking on my phone. But as you see that genetically modified mosquitoes is a real thing. And everybody seems to be okay with it. Since when are people okay with genetically modified mosquitoes? I guess when people are okay with genetically modified food, they'll be okay with genetically modified mosquitoes, will be okay with genetically modified injections. See, all this trust of the world is what the problem is. So, again, when the body's natural processes are impaired or weakened because we reach the threshold of toxic overload through injections, procedures, drugs, and everything that pharmacia has offered us to weaken the body's natural removal process. I call it the natural removal process. Then we have mold and fungus overgrowth. I've talked about the dangers of root canals. Putting something dead in your mouth is going to create mold or quote unquote infection. But people, look, I get it. It seems convenient. Save the tooth. Nobody wants to be toothless. But nobody wants to die because you have mold leaking into your bloodstream either. Again, when anything destroys more cells than the body can remove, the microbiome takes on an aggressive fungal nature as dead cells accumulate. And as the body tries to remove the fungus created by it creates a toxic byproduct that is very harmful to our body. For example, do you know when your body tries to break down alcohol, it creates some kind of aldehyde, something very toxic. And your liver has to break down this aldehyde or formaldehyde or whatever it makes, acetaldehyde or something. I forget what it's called. But our bodies via the liver has to break down this great toxin and reduce it down to carbon dioxide and water. And the excretion of this breakdown of this toxin is carbon dioxide and water. But it puts a great burden on the liver. Likewise, when your body has to break down all these dead cells, it creates a great byproduct toxin. And if you keep creating more of these cells that have to break down than your body can get rid of, then a lot of times you're going to have skin irritations. When you think about measles and chickenpox or any of these STI skin irritation things, people don't ever think that when we think about infections that that are contagious, and I'm using the word contagious in quotations, think about somebody who's basically dying inside. Think about everybody having different variations of accelerated death in their body, depending on their livelihood, their lifestyle, how they treat their body. A person that's like a dead body is the extreme. So we'll put the dead body as 10. But suppose you could be alive and your body be at a 9 or 8, a 7 or 6, and you have that much fungus and death in you, but you're still alive. And let's suppose you have activities with somebody who has all of it from whatever causes, all kinds of toxic things in their bodies. That microbiome has adapted to this toxic nature and environment that this person lives on. What's being traded is the microbiome. The biofilms that carry this fungus is what's being carried. Just like Jeffrey Dahmer and people like him who do weird, abominative things with dead bodies. But people don't question that there are people right here walking around because of their lifestyles and because of how they treat their bodies with a load of fungus in their body. And their microbiome is adapted to not just protecting this fungus, but warding it off from the rest of their bodies. It's a lot of things we don't understand too. But anytime you have a skin irritation or something reflects itself on the skin, your body's trying to get rid of something because something has overloaded your system. It's not a coincidence that the same people who get chickenpox are susceptible to shingles when they get older, because whatever they inject in our bodies when we were born, it incubates and it expresses itself as a chicken pox, and then it expresses itself again when your body starts to weaken in old age and your body's immune system can no longer see. Shingles is something that comes out when your body's natural system begins to weaken naturally. So your body may have been strong enough 50, 60 years of age, and then all of a sudden when you get in your 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, your body can no longer, and if you haven't efficiently detoxed as best you can a lot of things in your body, as you get old, your body can no longer fight these things and keep you alive. So it has to make a choice. We either keep you alive, and we let this thing just run, we run through your body and try to get out your skin, or we shut you down because we're spending all our energy fighting this fungus in your body. See, anytime something happens in your body, there's a lot of energy being expended. Like if you have multiple infections, if you're just tired all the time, because your body's busy trying to fight candida and fungus. That's why a lot of illnesses in the body come with extreme fatigue. If you're always eating, you're always tired because digestion takes a lot of energy. The itis. It's a lot of energy to do these processes. So if your body is constantly fighting a battle because of lack of awareness and bad habits and lifestyles, you're always going to be tired. Why do you think caffeine drinks? And I was guilty at one point before God gave me an easy way out. It started to affect my teeth. And when I had that one tooth, that caffeine made that thing go bad when I had that root canal, and I just had to get that thing out. But everybody's dependent on caffeine and stimulants as a deflection away from what's happening inside. Well, I don't have to examine why I have low energy. Let me just pump myself full of caffeine and then crash out later. That's the society we live in. Instead of realizing this is not normal for me to be this tired with this level of activity. I didn't do this much to be this tired. What's going on in my body? That's the first sign that something's going wrong. You just have fatigue out of nowhere. Before you even get the symptoms, your body has no energy. And that's the first sign that we need to start making changes to something. Maybe start eating well, sleeping well, praying well. We need to start doing something because the stresses on all levels are not doing well in our body. But that's the first symptom that many people overlook. Well, I'm just going to push myself. I'm just going to take some caffeine. And then you sleep enough and you're still tired. So you crossed out sleep. That didn't fix it. You're eating well. You're still tired. See, it's a lot of things you got to do. Did you eliminate the toxins out of your colon? Still tired? And once you start to go down this checklist, you're going to go down just a trial and error, in which you don't really want to do that, because that could be a process that could cause a lot of issues by, not being honest about how you treat your body. So we know the bad things we do. So go right to the bad things we do, eliminate those things, and then go down the list. You're not drinking enough water, you're not going to get out all the waste. You're not eating the right foods, you're not giving your body the nutrients to heal, regenerate. Therefore, you're feeding the fungus and you're not feeding the healthy cells. Because you're always feeding one of two things, either feeding fungus in your body or you're feeding healthy cells. That's it. No areas of gray. So every time we munch, that's why I know what happens. Every time I eat the bad foods, any weaknesses in my body, they come out. The aches in my knees, wherever. If you always notice, if you watch what you eat, and the inflammation comes in all the key places. All right, let me see what you're talking about. I haven't checked in the stream in a minute. Let me see. What's going on, Tara W? She says certified organic castor oil, hexane, chemical free, help with teeth pain and more. Also for good teeth. Let me tell you, if you have any teeth issues, especially like an abscess or something, man, go find yourself a matcha green tea bag or some black tea bags and just put that on the area. It might hurt if the area is sensitive, but it will drain and help that infection come out like no other. I get part of Arco tea as well, which is great. I use dandelion root tea, which is great. Dandelion root and leaf is very potent to help the liver detoxify and remove toxic overloads. I love dandelion root. Golden seal is potent and expensive, but you just can't take it all the time. But dandelion root and leaf tea, that is definitely a go-to. You got nettle tea, you got stinging nettle, which is good for people with mucus. You got black seed oil. You got what is that stuff? I take white willow for pain, and you got arnica for pain. You got I mean, it's so many things. I can just go down the list, and I'm gonna go down the list soon enough. JP says sarcopenia is one of the number one causes of death. So getting your calories is actually very important, including protein. Yeah, you definitely can't undereat, especially if you're active. Now, if you are working out, you definitely have to eat, but you have to make sure the quality of your food is good, because eating a whole bunch of empty calories is starving your body. The worst thing you can be is fat and still nutritionally starving. That's the number one cause of snacking. You got people who are well overweight, but always hungry because their body is nutritionally starving. Not calorically, they got the calories, they don't got the nutrition. So it's important that we make sure we get the nutrition. The calories should be nutritionally dense. So I just want to qualify, because you're making a good point. Definitely don't want to undereat. Your body needs what it needs to replenish, rebuild, sustain. But we got to make sure that everything is nutritionally dense. Because there are a lot of people who like, man, I can't eat. I'm already overweight. But you're still hungry. You're snacking because your body is still starving for nutrients. And eating chips and cookies and all that is not going to satiate your nutritional needs. Let me tell you something. I try to get sun whenever I can. Even if it's winter time, try to get a window where you can just let the sun sit in a chair and let the sun shine on you. I'm telling you, something about sunlight in any capacity is better than artificial light. I don't know what it is, but it's something very unique about natural light. What's going on, Trapper 1929? You know, when I see a lot of old people, right, and the older you get, the more people you find out are missing teeth. My grandmother used to get on me, and it's because she was in a generation where they didn't have, old people have they're a treasure chest of wisdom. They try to spare you the things that they had to learn, right? So she used to get on me like, man, take care of your teeth, brush your teeth, don't do this, don't do that, don't eat all this. And it's like, sometimes when you're young, you don't listen to people. And then as you get older, you be like, wow, that was wisdom. And even now, outside of me being a dummy when I was in my early 20s and chipping my tooth, one of my back teeth, trying to open a beer bottle. And what else did I do? And this other one was just, I don't know. It was, I think it was something else going on. I think it was a microbiome issue in my mouth that caused this issue. Instead of that, I let that person do a root canal. Let me tell you, there's only a few times in my life where I was, man, let me tell you, I had to pray. I was so mad when let me tell you this. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you how I had to pray. So the guy that did the root canal, he thought he was a young, hip doctor. He thought he was cool and all that, right? And so I started having pain. Everything was all right. I knew something was going on because every once in a while I would feel it. I would just feel it. And I was like, I'm not supposed to feel nothing. I'm not supposed to feel it like at all. But it's just something very subtle. And I just like, maybe some food stuck in there. Anyway, it started hurting so bad. So I went to this guy. I was like, look, man, I can't sleep. I can't eat. It's been months. I'm about to go in my, I feel like this pain is about to drive me in shock. I could barely drive myself to see this person. This person looked in and says, nothing wrong with it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm about to go into shock. Like it's either going to you or the emergency room at this point. And all they're going to do is tell me to go find an orthodontist. And so I was just teed off because I'm like, you did, this is your work. Take it out. I'll pay for it. He said, I can't do it. I realized at that moment, I still had a lot of growth because I ain't gonna lie, I wanted to knock him out. I know that ain't Christ-like, and I didn't do it, but I felt it. I thought it because I was in that much pain. And I was like, and I calmed down. I was like, okay. I calmed myself down and I prayed about it. I said, you know what? Let me just call this person. Yes, they're just a problem. But I felt like I was dying. That's how much pain I was in. So I had to call. I was looking for emergency dentist. So I'm just going through. Like if y'all know desperate, I was desperate. I was praying, but I was also desperate because I felt like I don't know what to do. The emergency room is going to stabilize you and put you in a worse situation. So there's no point in going in there if you don't fix the root issue. So I was like, I need a dentist who can pull this tooth out. All I wanted was an extraction, and I need it today. I couldn't survive it another day. That's how bad I was. So I found someone, and I told him my situation. I said, come in today at 2:00. When I tell you I zoomed over there, God help me. And they looked at it, and they did the scan and said, yes, this tooth is very infected. It needs to come out immediately. And the only reason they didn't take it out that day is because the orthodontist wasn't there. And so they Novocaine me up. They gave me pain meds, and I needed something. I know the Novocaine got nanoparticles in it, and hopefully the one they gave me didn't. But I tell you one thing, it made the pain go away. And I did take those pills, and I don't like taking 800s of ibuprofen or nothing. I took them every 6 hours. It's the only way I was going to make it. I woke up. I barely slept out of anxiety, and you shouldn't be anxious for nothing. But I barely could sleep because I wanted this thing out of my mouth. The man took the thing out. Let me tell you, the pain immediately went away. Now I had the pain of the extracted tooth. That was annoying. But let me tell you what happened. My body has been stressed out for 3 months, being in constant pain, not eating, wasting away. That's when y'all saw me lose all this weight and I looked like I was dying because I was. When that tooth left my body, the first thing I did after he sewed me up is I went home and I took an 8-hour nap. I'll never forget that day. I couldn't feel my mouth or nothing. I just went to sleep. I was exhausted. I think I just collapsed on my bed. I woke up, no pain. Not even from the wound. It's like my body started rapidly healing. I just thank God so much. I praise God so much. I couldn't even, my lips were still numb. And I still praise God. It was that stuff, it was like, I was still moving, but I can feel it. I could still feel a little bit. I praise God so much. And I just felt different. I mean, just coming home and I just passed out from being exhausted. And now I went that same dentistry, which I thought was okay. They're out of business, or they had to relocate. Something happened. Something happened with them. And so, of course, I removed the hatred because it's not my place. It's not my place. Vengeance is the Lord. And I pray that the person repents and come to Christ so they can escape the judgment that we all need to escape only in Christ Jesus by faith. I didn't wish no ill will. Once I was just in a moment because I was in pain and I was it was almost like that's the worst thing that somebody can tell me when I'm in that much pain. That was the worst thing that somebody can tell me, is that I refuse to do it. And I was just stuck because I was like, there's no, that was just, I came in, I said, I need the tooth extracted. They knew what I came in. He was like, I need to look at it. I need to look at it. And he just said, I won't do it. And I was just like, what? I was planning on being pain-free today. Yeah, I finally got that poison out of me. Exactly. And my body felt amazing. I mean, my skin changed. Everything changed. Just when they pulled these two, I had 2 teeth extracted in my life. Both when they pulled out the one that was broken, I looked at the tooth root and I saw that infection. I told them, "Let me see it." I looked at that, and that root canal teeth was just leaking in my bloodstream. And let me tell you something they won't tell you about saliva. Saliva is a filtrate of your blood. So if your blood isn't healthy, your saliva won't be healthy. Most people don't realize that. Your saliva is a filtrate of your blood. So if you got toxic blood, you're going to have toxic saliva, and it's going to affect your teeth. It's going to grow fungus throughout your body, and you're going to have systematic problems. But when your blood is doing good because you eat well and you did what you need to do. Now, for me, thank the Lord Jesus Christ, that was the only root canal I ever had and the only one I ever will have. I will never allow anybody to do a crown, a root canal, implant, nothing. God help me that I never fall down or get my teeth knocked out from anything. Because I'm gonna be walking around. If I can't snap something in, then you're just gonna see a toothless me. That's just what it is. I am not going back. Just like I said, I'm never taking no more injections and anything like that from Big Pharma Kid. I mean it. I know the consequences. Oh, you might do this. Okay, fine. The Lord controls my death anyway. And it's not like I'm not trying to be a good steward of my health. I'm just doing it the way God wanted us to do it. What's going on, Renee? And I try to share people and tell people. Renee K says, I know what you felt. I had the same situation. Bad dentist. The new one I had, the new one I had to convince he didn't want to take it out because I was too young. After he took it out, it was such a relief. Yeah, they'll tell you, oh, your tooth is your jaw is gonna collapse. What they say? You're gonna, because of bone loss. And look, I'm like, look, I understand the mechanics of your jaw. But I also understand that, yes, of course, if I could avoid a tooth coming out, I would. But at that situation, I could not. So I let it, for whatever reason, I let things get too far. And that's why you don't want to get things too far. Tooth had to come out. The infection was too progressed. So, and once I let the guy root canal, I ruined my chances of healing the infection the natural way anyway. Like, that's the problem what I don't like about root canals. Once you allow it to happen, you've ruined any naturopathic way of healing that area. So I knew the only option was to come out. My options were plain and simple. Take it out. I never knew that being in prolonged, I've had other pain in my life. So don't think I don't know pain in other ways. But I know what it's like when people go into shock, because I was almost there. When your body starts shaking involuntarily, and I'm tough. For whatever it's worth, I'll tell you, I'm tough. My body wasn't as tough as my mind because it was shaking. And I knew in my spirit that if I didn't do something about this, it wasn't going to work out for me. You can have a cardiac arrest. You can go into shock. There's a lot of things that can happen trying to be tough. I didn't want to be tough. Good night, Laura, and good night, Tita. I know it's late, y'all. Y'all hanging in with me. We're gonna do a part 2. We're gonna do a part 2 of this. I'm gonna get through a few more, but we're gonna do a part 2. I know it's late for people, but I thank you all who could hang with me. We definitely gonna do a part 2 with this because I'm just rambling along, y'all. But I love it. This is comfortable. So we got environmental toxins, we got chemtrails. Oh, I said the word. God forgive me. We got heavy metals, smart dust, nanoparticles, mold. And they admitted to Operation Sea Spray, which is spraying mold in the sky. They actually are. Look up Operation Sea Spray, and they did admit to spraying mold in the sky. Mold is basically decaying material. It could be fecal matter. They could just spraying that stuff in the air. You got poison water, GMO food, pesticides. All these things creating autoimmune responses, which means that your body's cells become toxic, where your body's attacking the cell because it's toxic. Refined carbs and sugars that your body cannot utilize. Chronic high blood sugar, which leads to insulin resistance. When your blood sugar remains high for whatever reason, your body produces more insulin, and the insulin becomes non-responsive. When you have chronic insulin overproduction, then you have insulin resistance, where your body doesn't even respond to the insulin no more. So your blood sugars stay high, your insulin levels stay high, and the high insulin levels can lead to the C word, because that creates cell growth. Insulin makes things grow. So if you got toxic cells, fungus, and you had high insulin that's not going into the cell, because the purpose of insulin is to go into the cell to make the cell utilize the sugar. But if you got high insulin chronically and you got toxic cells, those toxic cells are going to start to proliferate. If you know anything about these bodybuilders who are on steroids and stuff, what do they take? Insulin-like growth factors, things that make their body cells grow. IGF, insulin-like growth factors. Very dangerous stuff. And then that leads to pancreas dysfunction, where your beta cells, the cells that produce insulin, become dysfunctional and they cannot produce insulin. Now, I've seen people, contrary to modern pharmacia knowledge, reactivate their beta cells. Type 1 diabetes is supposed to be, oh, your beta cells are just no longer responsive. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, I've seen people come out of that. I'm not saying that's the standard. It's just what I heard. And people I know that were told they're type 1 and now they have no issue. So, like I said, don't believe everything you hear. Of course, we give all credit and honor to God, but God wants us to not trust the world. And then they gave people a diet that's low in healthy fats. That's another destructive thing. Most of your fat-soluble vitamins come in through fats. So they replace butter with margarine, cheeses with fake cheeses, and they want look, for all the vegans out there. I'm not vegan. I get the premise. There may be times where avoiding meat can be beneficial to the body during times of detox and all that, but I'm speaking for myself as a man. I've tried both sides. My body demands meat, eggs, beef. It doesn't do me well. And I get all the nutrients. I can see the improvement in all my body functions. Now, I would tell people, just like vegetables, don't think of the meat being across the board bad. Most of the meat, the livestock, is being injected with hormones and steroids and all kinds of things. They're being raised in unpasture. They're not grazing on the pasture. They're usually kept in stables, unsanitary stable conditions. They're eating GMO corn-based feed, which is not natural. They're not grazing, eating pesticide-free grass. They're eating all this GMO feed, and they're being injected, and they're being mistreated, and they're not sufficiently slaughtering the animals the right way that the Bible would call kosher or whatever. They're not doing any of this stuff. So people, they want to put all of the meat in a bad lens, but people don't think about how the livestock is being raised from birth to slaughter. Matters. It all matters. But they want you to hate everything else and ignore the practical things that we know they're doing to the animals. Same thing with vegetables. Eating GMO vegetables is pointless. Eating GMO fruit is pointless. If you're not aware of the pesticides and not washing this stuff off, you could be doing more harm than good. It's the same thing. Even if you're vegan, you have to make sure the food is real. You just can't say I'm eating vegetables, but you're eating fake vegetables grown in the lab somewhere. And then you got the nutritionally deficient soils, poor soils, the seedless foods, which means that they have low vitality. People are having all kinds of dysfunction, can't even procreate because of the xenoestrogens and all the toxins in the food and poison water, chlorine, fluoride, hormones, microplastics, all of that stuff. Endocrine disruptors, preservatives, seed oils, dyes, chemicals, the cookware, everything you can, cell towers, radiation, all these things are affecting our bodies. People just because they create these sophisticated names like stratospheric aerosol injections, which is just a overly verbose way of saying spraying chemicals in the stratosphere. People think that that's a good thing. They don't think, well, how can we verify that the chemicals you say you're spraying, you're not spraying Agent Orange or arsenic or something more toxic. We don't know what they're spraying. But we've seen instances where they have actually admitted to spraying mold, all kinds of toxic things in the air, and lied about it. And then you got the increasingly sedentary lifestyle where people just want to live in virtual reality. The increased stress of life because people are walking around faithless and not regenerated, and therefore are walking blindly into more stressful situations like we all used to before Christ opened our eyes and we start becoming aware of our own sinful condition in flesh. The worrying of life without hope in Christ. All of that will break you down. What's going on, Jenny? You said I used to eat the Impossible Burger. I'm glad you don't anymore. Yeah, man, let me tell you, the old cookware is the best. The real stainless. See, real cookware was heavy. If your pots are not heavy, you need to get new pots. My grandmother was old and she used to lift them heavy pots. So, she had all kinds of issues going on. She wasn't afraid to break out the cast iron, the real stainless steel that's got weight to it. I don't even think I think they're blending aluminum into this stainless steel now because I don't think it's all stainless steel unless it has weight. Some of this stuff says stainless steel, but its weight is lightweight like aluminum. So I think it's some kind of blend, some kind of alloy. And the alloy is a blend. They can say it's stainless steel, but it's probably a blend or a cheap alloy of a mixture. People used to drink out of copper cups, which people say is healthy because you get the copper and the benefits of copper is vast. When my grandmother passed away, I make sure I got her good pots. But I'm definitely doing xylitol, and I've had good results with it. Let me see. XC says I tried vegan for January to June 2024, 6 months. Aunt bought me an Angus beef cheeseburger, and it was over. Oh, you said kosher? Well, kosher is actually very cruel to the animal. Well, let me just say, let me not use that word. Let me just say the way that we're supposed to drain and slaughter the animal, whatever is a good practice. I'm not using. I shouldn't have used that word. Let me just say whatever is a good use to drain the blood and slaughter an animal. The Bible gives us ways that we should do things. So whatever way that we were prescribed to do things, I believe it's practical and it's good because when the blood is left to coagulate and sit in the meat, it becomes toxic. And who knows how these corporations are processing meat these days? We don't even know. Yeah, I know about Soylent Green. We don't know if they're just grinding people up at this point. We don't know. But thank you for that. What's going on, Merle and Idle Hands? Peace and blessings. And I know cast iron is rough because you have to season the pot. You got to know these things, but it should be second nature to us to not be dependent on. Don't ever get anything that's what is it, stickless, or what do you call it when it has that Teflon coating on it? Yeah, don't get none of that stuff. Oh, fast food is dangerous beyond dangerous. That food doesn't even break down. It's so fake and full of mess until we don't like I would greatly tell people to avoid fast food. I know it's convenient, but it's not. It's just, man, you can't work if you're sick, and you're ticking time bomb before something really bad happens, and then you're no longer work, and then you're gonna have all the time in the world because you're gonna be laying in the bed all day. So just think, fast food can be a fast way to be sick too. Non-stick. There we go. Thank you. See, sometimes too much sugar in the brain. We're definitely going to do a part two. So we know that the big pharmakia engineering, the poor diet, stress, the superficial society has all been weakening our body systems for generations of people. This has been passed down. Unfortunately, one of the terrible traditions in this emerging modern society where people are don't grow their own food, they don't eat food they produce, and people are becoming very trusting about strangers making their food and outside of communities that are established on a biblical worldview. People who don't acknowledge God through Christ have no reason to care about you outside of taking your money. They can feed you slop as long as they get paid for it and they get to enrich their own life. They probably don't care if you died right after you ate the food. So at some point, we need to start being more accountable to at least having some kind of awareness about the food that we eat. Who's making it? Make as much of your own food as you can. Use ingredients that you grow, you trust, or you find. It's hard, but if you're in the area where you can find a family-owned local farm where you can go see it yourself, check it out and try to buy food from them. They'll usually give you more and better quality instead of getting overpriced for fake food at the supermarket. You can have a ton of food in your house. It'll rot before you can eat it all because it's just not good quality. You know, used to be able to freeze meat for a long time when it was real, but now meat spoils in the freezer now quickly because it's not real. People used to have deep freezers and store up meat. They processed it a certain way where you can preserve it. Now stuff that doesn't last anymore because it's all processed. The frozen food that you buy that's heavily processed, it's no good. Like, I remember one thing I realized is that when you're relaxed, your body does better. And the best way to relax is to have the peace of God. When you're relaxed and your mind stays focused on Christ, a lot of problems that the world gives you, you won't be worried about because you won't be trusting the world. You won't be living for the world, and you will have peace knowing that in Christ, your paths are directed by His Spirit. That helps you relax. Sunlight, clean water, that includes shower and drinking water, avoiding plastics whenever possible, non-stick cookware, any chemical packaging. Most of these chemical packagings have BPA, phenol A in it. You can use black walnut and wormwood to help get rid of parasites. Just don't take it too often. Activated charcoal. You have to drink a lot of clean water because it will make you constipated. Part of Arco is good for removing fungus out the body. Sometimes I take proteolytic enzymes to break down dead necrotic tissue that might be in my body, clots or anything like that. Cayenne pepper, excellent. I usually take serrapeptase and I got a blend. I got nattokinase and I got a blend of other enzymes. But do your research. I love matcha green tea. There's something powerful in matcha green tea, although there's a shortage right now. So if you can find some, you're probably going to have to pay a good price for it. I said natural forms of vitamin C, food grade. Look them up. And if you do get a pill, make sure it's a vitamin C complex with natural brand, food grade ingredients. You can also use camu berry and citric foods like lemons and oranges. Peppers are high vitamin C and some greens. You got keratin is good. Cruciferous vegetables are good. Just get some onions, get your seasoning right, saute them things in some butter. Good stuff. Dandelion root, burdock root. Many things can help. The milk thistle are great for detoxing the liver, and very vital to have a healthy liver. Very vital. Lemons are good for liver. The peel as well. When you make tea, you clean the peel off and boil the peel in some water. Same with the orange peel and lemon peel in some tea. Very good for dumping the body, helping the body dump toxins. A good quality pine needle tea, very excellent. And see, all these things will help reduce all of this fungus and mold that all of these things are causing in the body. Help reduce overall inflammations. Just cut off refined sugars and processed foods. Get away from radiation. Go be around some trees or a lake whenever possible. Leave your phone in the car or put it in a Faraday cage or something. Just take a break. You don't have to turn it off forever. Just take a break every now and again. See how you feel. See if you sleep better. N-acetylcysteine, or also known as NAC, very good stuff. I take it. Curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric, ginger root. I always have ginger root. Make it for tea. Blend it up. Good stuff. Celery, very good. Parsley, watercress, broccoli sprouts, good stuff. Brussels sprouts. Some people like chlorella and spirulina. If you can find a good quality, I heard that's pretty good. Moving, keep your body moving. Helps your lymphatic system. Help the body excrete the toxins out of your lymph system. That makes a difference. If you like to soak in a hot bath, get your baking soda, your borax, a little bit of borax, some Epsom salt, magnesium, or something like that. It's great to draw out toxins. Just do your research. Some people actually use like turpentine and stuff like that, like some kind of natural stuff, but a natural form of it. But you do your own research. I like oil of oregano, grapefruit seed extract, eye bright, clove and thyme, Ceylon cinnamon, black seed oil, and pre and probiotics. Great stuff. Jane Doe says she jumped the trampoline. It's good to drain the lymphatic system. Yeah, I heard about the trampoline. Jump rope. Yeah, calcium. I just wouldn't get calcium from. Avoid calcium carbonate. Not only does it destroy your stomach acid, but it can affect your heart. Calcium citrate, if you have to take it, is a better. But the best way to get calcium is from spinach. But be careful of oxalates and make sure that you don't have a high incidence of oxalates to get kidney stone. It's a lot of things you have to make sure you drink enough water and all that. But under normal circumstances, eating spinach is great for calcium. Yeah, jumping jacks. What's the other thing people do? Burpees, jump rope, all these things. And depending on your needs, do it. For the older people who have need, don't want to put the stress on their knees or their feet, find some kind of exercise that's low impact for what your specific needs are, and just try to do it. Even if it's a bike or a stretch or a movement that you can do, just do with what's within your own range of motion. And depending on your age and condition, gradually progress to whatever your extent is. Water exercises, yes. JP says, what did you say healed that skin mold thing you had? That thing was scary. I thought it was cancer. It was nascent iodine. I took some fresh garlic and ground it in a press and got the juice or the oils from the garlic, and I mixed it in this little bowl, and I added some castor oil, the real organic castor oil. Make sure it's good quality, not good quality castor oil. I mixed it in there and I just put it on the area. And I'll tell you, it went away fast. I've never seen something work that fast. And that thing was big. It was big. It was making the hair, like my hair was growing into it and everything. I was like, what in the world is this? And it just went away. I did pray. So um oh, Renee says calcium citrate fixed my husband's sun allergy. Wow. Yeah, so like I said, I would just avoid Tums is calcium carbonate. Be careful of a lot of powders that have calcium carbonate in them. You don't want to dull your stomach acid, and you don't want that form of calcium because it's not good for your heart. They have just look for the right form of vitamins and minerals. Avoid the oxides and get something like when I say zinc, I take zinc glycinate. Jenny says I have a bump on my neck. Maybe I use castor oil. Yeah. High blood sugars can cause an increase of moles or bumps and stuff like that, and skin irritation. So if you've been eating a lot of stuff that's been raising your blood sugar, you know, definitely address that issue as well. And because when I do things, I also do things in practical. Um, what is the word I'm looking for? In practical. I do them along with doing the other practical things. Like I cut eating the bad foods and make sure I'm getting enough sleep and drinking enough clean water and stuff like that. I just don't do like I don't spot treat. I improve everything on every level. When I want to do something. You said my mom loves Tums. Yeah. Honestly, apple cider vinegar is better than Tums because usually when you have heartburn or acid reflux, it's because you have low stomach acid. When you eat and your stomach acid is low, your stomach valve, what do they call that? I don't know, I forgot. I used to know it. The valve that closes on your stomach, um, it doesn't it doesn't close in the presence of low stomach acid. But when you have high acid in your stomach, it closes. It does the opposite of what people think. Most people think acid reflux and heartburn is because of excessive acid, but it's the valve. You have the valve, either the valve is dysfunctioning or it doesn't close because you naturally don't have enough enzymes and acid in your stomach. Increase the acid with apple cider vinegar. For me, I had very bad acid reflux. I took betaine hydrochloride. I started healing my gut and I ate better and did a whole bunch of other things and it went away. And I had it bad. I mean, I was taking acid reducers, and I know how they were causing all kinds of issues, but it was bad. I called the ambulance one night because I thought I was having a heart attack, and it was this acid reflux. So I had it really bad for years. And I don't have any issues with it anymore. You said I think I got a cut and the scar healed weird. Yeah, just keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye on it on things that if it makes sure if you feel odd about it, just keep an eye on it because you never know with things. Yeah, Keisha, take the walks when you can, or you know, anything you can do in the house, just move. You can do in the house and do some knee lifts, some move your arms. Anything is better than just sitting down. When you sit down, not only do you make your heart work, because when you're sitting is the worst thing you can do. You either should lay down where your heart is level with your feet and your blood doesn't have to pump, or you stand up where you can move. But sitting, it bends your artery, your femoral artery in your thigh. And that already creates a lot of bad blood flow. If you notice that many people, when they sit down, their legs and feet go numb or something like that, your blood flow is greatly reduced in that position. So it's best to stand or to lay down. I try to make sure I stand or lay down. And if I sit, get a lazy boy where you can sit with your body extended. I know they're expensive, but every old person should have a lazy boy or some kind of recliner. All right, let me see. What else do we need to talk about? I'm probably going to save the rest of this for another time. And also make sure you have enough iodine. Like I taking like a drop of iodine in your water, can make a difference. If you notice that you have hair loss or something like that, or your energies, if anything is right, and just make sure that you're not taking like I know people say you should get tested to see if you have hypo or hyperthyroid issues or something like that. Make sure because depending on what your issues, you don't want iodine may not be good for everybody. So you have to figure out if you're deficient, if you got hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism or whatever that is. But look it up and look at the symptoms and maybe, I'm not opposed to people getting a test to see if they're low in these things. I mean, it could be helpful. But, if you can go to a naturopathic practitioner, not new age, naturopathic, you know, I love eggs, so I'm probably not too low in iodine. Yeah, part two coming soon. Definitely. Let me see. Yeah, we're gonna do a part two. We're gonna do a part two, y'all. I still got a whole bunch I want to talk about and break down. So I appreciate you all hanging in there with me. This is part one. Part one was all over the place, but we got through it. But I thank you all for enduring. And part two, we're gonna have questions. So it's late now, but on part two, we're gonna do a question and answer in the health stream. So you can answer your questions. Ask your questions, and we're gonna, I'm gonna do my best, and people in the chat can also give you their views on certain things. So that's what we're gonna do in part two. But I appreciate you all coming through. Thank you all for hitting the like button. This video got a very good like response because I thank all of you all. We got 117 likes already. And if you haven't hit the like button already, please hit it. Let's make this let's get this information out there. Let me see. What's going on? None of your business. Peace and blessings. Tara W. Keisha, Erica, Lamb's Grace. He said you could write a book on health. Most of this stuff is just from me learning and just being very observant. And I was one of those people that always tested things on my own body. I didn't take anything for face value, but I would test it to see if it reduced the result. And I would test it in many different ways. And I would listen to other people and listen to their results. And I had a lot of hands-on real world experience when it comes to health. So I'm just sharing my views on things. Again, let me put this disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional. This is not medical advice. Informational, educational purposes only. Find yourself a naturopathic practitioner who can give you a design for your wellness, the way God designed for you to live, not the way that John D. Rockefeller or Louis Pasteur designed for you to live outside the Freemason handbook. Hey, Barry, what's going on? Welcome. So on that note, I'm out of here, y'all. Peace and blessings, and thank you all for just coming through and sharing and discussing and sharing your views. I'm always go back and look at the chat. So on that note, peace and blessings, y'all. I'm out.